I'm Rob Kircher, and welcome to our 1905 cottage. This is an ongoing series of episodes where my wife Barbara and I will be restoring this beautiful old cottage behind us. Now, we know it's going to be a long road because there are insulation problems, plumbing problems, electrical problems, and a myriad of other problems yet to be discovered. So we hope you'll stay with us because we believe we can make this an absolute stunner. Coming up in episode 2, we're going to be visited by master plumber Scott Guilfoyle and his assistant Marvin, both great guys, and they do just a phenomenal job. Also, our windows are going to be continuing to be painted and restored by Paul Herman, who is just a whiz at restoration, if you will. And I'm going to be tackling the windows in the front of our house. And there's these nasty, nasty little things that exist. They're called carpenter ants. And I got to tell you something. I don't like them, okay? I don't like them at all. And but I have to get rid of them. And stay tuned so you can see how I'm actually going to do that. Plus, we have a couple other kind of wonderful things yet I'm not going to tell you about. You just have to hang in there and see for yourself. So stay with us. Don't forget to subscribe and share, and we love having you. I'm dealing with this nasty little problem right here. This is facing the north side, so Lake Ontario is literally about 300 feet in that direction, and this bears the brunt of a lot of that wind and ice and snow and so on. And as you can see, the sill is completely rotted out. There's nothing left to it. So I've got to get this sill out of here and replace it with a new pressure treated piece of wood. Well, I don't have any raid or things of that nature, but I do have some backwoods, and these are carpenter ants. And I have no idea if this stuff is going to be effective or not. It looks like it doesn't like them. I think it's working, folks. I'm not sure, but these are big black carpenter ants, and you don't want those in your house, let me tell you. The whole nest of them. See, the perfect home for a carpenter ant is this dead wood. Moist dead wood. They love it. Well, I got it cleaned out as best as I can. The next process now is to fit it with a piece of pressure treated wood and kind of go from there. And there's Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Now we have to do the same thing to the next window over, which has got exactly the same problem. However, it's not as severe. You know, one of the things that Barbara and I love about our 1905 cottage is that it's a mystery. What do I mean by that? It just seems like we're always uncovering something new about the house that we had no inkling about. For example, the other day, a guy who lives in the neighborhood, he's been here for over 30 years, he was telling us about the foundations. The foundation? Yeah, he said, do you realize that your house actually has a relatively new foundation? And I said, no, I didn't know that. And he said, yeah. He said, the previous owners actually, from the inside down, replaced all the floor joists, and there's a crawl space underneath the house now that's about 2.5, 3 feet deep. And then they put new flooring on top of that. Okay, this is a section of the sill that I cut out a little while ago, and it's got two important angles to it. It's got this angle, which is the outside angle of the sill that's exposed to the weather. This is the top part of the sill, and this is the angle that I cut to get the sill out. And so I have to reproduce this exactly, and 64 inches long, by the way, out of this 2x4 pressure treated wood, which will last quite a long time. So that's the important thing. Okay, now I'm going to cut the other angle, and I'm going to do it on both of these sills so they're exactly the same. So this is what the new sill looks like installed. As you can see, it's been caulked, and this area here is going to get a new molding. So right now all we want to do is get this sill protected with a good quality primer, and because the rain is coming, folks, and we want to make sure we're protected here. Well, I'm not sure if my microphone is actually picking up the sound of the waves from Lake Ontario or not. It's about 300 feet away, but trust me, it's rocking and rolling, and pretty soon the rains are going to be coming, and I've got to protect this sill, as I mentioned before. Fortunately, I'm protected a little bit from, you can't see it, but right next to the camera is a 75-year-old rhododendron. It's a spectacular specimen. So it's kind of sheltering us a little bit, but so it's going to help to a degree of minimizing how much rain gets on here. Okay, so the next thing is to actually prime this thing. As I mentioned, we want to use a really good primer. You know, one of the things that Barbara and I just absolutely love about our 1905 Cottage is that it's a living mystery. What do I mean by that? Well, it just seems like every day we're uncovering a new chapter within this wonderful mystery story. For example, the other day, a man who lives down the street, he's been here about 35, 40 years, something like that. He knew the previous owners quite well, and he was telling me that the original house, the footprint, was the kitchen and the dining room, and there wasn't a wall in between the two. It was just an open space, and there was a little bathroom off the side. Well, that has transformed then to a point where many additions have been added to it, and now that you look at the house, you say, okay, well, that begins to make some sense. Well, I made good progress today. I was able to get a new board on with the correct angle, and then what I did is I glued it, and I used wood screws to tighten it up all the way along the line, and then I put what they call rock solid. It's one of my favorite putties for woodworking. It's just what the name sounds like. It's rock solid. So tomorrow morning I'm going to sand this down. I'll put 2 coats of paint on it, and it'll be ready to be hung. While I was at this, I also started to work on this this window here. This is an Anderson crank-out window. It's the same that we have throughout our entire house. They're old, but they're really fantastic. Heavy-duty, quality windows. But we had the same problem at the bottom that this window had with the carpenter ants. So I put a new piece of wood in here. Again, I used a rock solid. Tomorrow I'm going to glaze them because the bottom 2 pieces need to have some new glazing in it. And then I'm going to paint it. So tomorrow, both of these windows will be hung, and we're going to be buttoned up. Well, this is definitely an Indian summer day. There's no question about it. I think we had a high today of about 72, 73, and the air is just wonderful. It reminds me when I was a kid and we used to roll around in the leaves in the front yard, and just the smell of those leaves was just so inviting, so wonderful. And that's what I'm smelling right now. I was talking previously about carpenter ants. Now, they're nasty, and if you leave them unchecked, they can actually destroy great portions of your woodwork, and if they're left for a long period of time, they can actually destroy your entire house. So they're not something that you want to keep around. And I'm dealing with this morning is like I did with my windowsills outside. I had to replace the sills because of the carpenter ants. I'm doing the same thing with one of our small crank-out windows. So let me show you how I'm going to solve that problem. Well, this is the bottom part of that Anderson crank-out window that I was talking about, and this is what carpenter ants can do. You can see they can completely destroy wood, and this happens to be the bottom sash of that window. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to put a new piece of wood in there, and I'm going to re-glue it, and it'll be good as new. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is chip away at this wood here. You want to get it all out, and you can see it's really destructive. This is all the old stuff. I'm just going to kind of scrape away. I don't want to destroy too much of it because I want to keep the majority of this bottom piece intact. Well, as you can see, what I've done is I put a clamp here to clamp the window down on my temporary workbench here, and then with my chisel I'm just cleaning these pieces out. Careful not to break the glass, by the way, but get down to a point where you got some solid wood, pretty much where we are. I'm going to shave this a little bit more. Again, careful not to break the glass. And then end up with some good wood that I can put a new piece onto this and sort of what I call scab it on. Alright, now what I'm going to do is take my sander, my palm sander, and sand this down on an angle to get rid of all that little fine stuff, and then put a new piece of wood on. I never throw anything out, and when I was repairing the sills on the front windows in the great room, this was a section of wood that was left over, and I thought to myself, you know what, this would be perfect for this job. As it turns out, it will be. So I'm going to cut it to length, and I'm going to glue it in, and I'm going to clamp it, and it'll be good as new. Okay, so here's my glue. It's dripping, but that's okay. That's what glue does. And I'm going to put the piece of wood on top of that, clamp it down, and then I'm going to use some filler, which I have. It's my favorite. It's called Rock Solid, and that will fill in all the gaps around the actual bottom. Okay, there we go. It's clamped, and as you can see, it fits quite well. And down here, I'm going to fill in a little bit of the gap with my Rock Solid. But all in all, I think we have solved our problem. So I'll be back after the glue dries, and then we'll paint it. Hello, how are you? How are you? Well, as we can see, Scott has already pulled the upstairs toilet out, so that's the old one and in with the new. So let's go upstairs and see what he's doing. Scott does not fool around here. He looks like it's seen better days. And here comes Marvin with the top of the bathroom sink, which is going to the curb.
And the toilet's already out.
Goodbye, old sink.
Yeah.
Say hello, Barb.
Set it here, and I could probably take it down. No? Okay.
All right, so this is what our bathroom looks like, minus our toilet and our sink. And pretty soon we're going to have all new fixtures in here. And Barbara, say hello, Barbara.
Hello.
Is going to be very happy about all that.
Yikes.
Depends on how bad you want the flame or the
Okay.
thing out of there.
All right. The discussion at the moment is the removal of that black plate because it's really not needed. And the question is, I guess the flange and how that would be connected. So he's going to try to get rid of both and just have the toilet rest directly on the floor, which is ideal. I've got some 1/8 and 3/8 plywood, if that helps. It's slanted, yeah.
I'm just standing here.
Scott's the hard work.
So Scott found the piping that leads from the second floor bathroom down into this level, and it's basically through the false ceiling that we have in the kitchen.
You need a Marvin.
I need a Marvin.
I'm the Marvin in this house.
Yeah.
Barb, go get me this. Barb, go
Yeah,
get
but
me this.
you're not as strong as Marvin is, though.
That's true.
Maybe.
Well, after working very hard, Scott was able to install the beautiful vanity sink and toilet in our upstairs bathroom, and it looks absolutely fantastic. I'm back out here dealing again with the carpenter ants. If you remember, they ate away both sills and our large picture windows in the front of the house, and they also managed to get into the storm window. So this is a little trickier, if you will, than replacing a sill. Here I have to carve away at the old wood and then put a new piece in that's at the same angle of the original window. Otherwise, when it's put in place, it's not going to sit properly and we're going to have a draft. Well, it's the next day, and everything is dried perfectly well. The rock solid is rock solid, and I'm now putting on the painter's tape because I'm going to put a coat of primer on this side, and then when that dries, we're going to flip it over and put primer on the next side, and then tomorrow we'll put 2 coats of the final paint, and then we can install the window. You know, I've mentioned this before a number of times, and I try to do this as much as my budget allows, but I always try to use really good quality products regardless of what I'm doing. And the same is the case when it comes to painting. Now with this fresh wood, because I sand a lot of it down, you want to use a really good primer. And in this case, I'm using that product right there, which is Kills. Now, as akin to building a house, if you have a weak foundation, your house is going to fall down. If you don't have a good base of primer, the next 2 coats of premium paint is not going to do well, okay? And it's certainly not going to do well over time. And that's what I'm trying to get 10 years out of this thing, and I think I will. So I'm going to put this primer down, a pretty good liberal coat, and then 2 coats of premium paint will go on tomorrow. 1905 was an amazing year. Aside from being the birth date of our 1905 cottage, it was also when the 6th planet of the universe was discovered. Yep, it was named Jupiter and first sighted by Charles Perini. How about that? Well, here's a shot of our first storm window in place. If you remember, the bottom part of this sill was completely eaten away by carpenter ants, and so that was repaired, and we primed it, gave it 2 coats of premium paint, and now it's where it should be, and it looks terrific. While I'm priming the second storm window, my wife Barbara is in the great room painting the baseboards around the room, and I got to tell you something, we have such a great surprise for you. The other day she and I went to an architectural salvage place, and we were rummaging around in the basement. I was looking for some old windows for the woodshed, and she found some amazing tile. I mean, these are old tiles that came from out of some wonderful home, no doubt, but they fit perfectly around our fireplace surround, and they're also the color that she wanted for the decor that she has for that room. So we couldn't be happier. Wait till you see those. She got a whole box full for about 40 bucks. Love it. Here's a close-up of that rosette tile, and as you can see, it has a really cool old look to it. So the idea was to tile the fireplace surround, and how we're going to do that is by taking, as you can see it behind me, This is called hardy board, and it's actually concrete. It's only 1/4 of an inch thick, but it's used in these kinds of situations. So we're going to actually cut it out, and you do it with a utility knife. You score it and then you break it, and you adhere it with construction adhesive around the surround area and also on the actual hearth of the fireplace. And then that is the proper basis, if you will, for laying the tile with adhesive, and also we're not going to be putting any grout in between the lines because we just want that real old-fashioned look. Now, in preparing for this, they had a piece of wood molding all the way around here, which is way too high, it's not even, so I'm going to be taking that off. I've already taken all the moldings off. And then what's good is the actual fireplace hearth. This is made out of concrete, poured concrete. And that is almost dead nuts level, so that's perfect. All right, so what I've done so far is I cut out the profile of the surround, if you will, on the bottom of the hearth of the fireplace from the backer board, and primarily did it with a jigsaw and a handsaw. It works very well. And then I put the adhesive down here, and then under here, this is the wire for our fireplace inset. It's a gas, and I'm tucking the wire under here, under the molding, because I don't want to see it. All right. So now what we're going to do is simply drop this in place and be mindful of that wire and push it right in like so. All right. Now you just want to come up to the bottom of this fireplace insert, because this has to at some point be lifted directly up when you want to adjust the fan or what have you. So you have to be, you don't want to put it underneath it. In other words, you want to put right up to it. Okay, now that's pretty solid. Now along the perimeter, I'm going to put some pressure treated wood in there, so we have a nice edge here and also over here. So that's step one. You know, I've talked about this neighborhood a number of times, and I got to tell you something. It's absolutely fantastic. The people are amazing, and it's such a wonderful little cluster of homes that just seems like it's magic. And we just absolutely love it, and we love working on our house. So we hope you stay with us. We hope that you subscribe, that you share, and you enjoy every episode as much as we do producing them. As you can see, I've been successful in putting up the hardy board, backer board, around the surround and also on the hearth. The next step is what I call a dry fit, and it's exactly what it sounds like. I'm using tile, our tile, and I'm just kind of spacing it so I get a sense for how the overall look is going to appear. Now you also notice I have this baseboard here. This was the original baseboard that was around the surround, and I want to restore it because I love that old look, if you will. So what I've done is I've taken 3 tiles and just kind of lifted this baseboard up along the line here, so it's pretty close to kissing the top of this tile, and that's what I want. And then this gap in the front here, I'm going to be filling in with some shoe molding that I will stain and hopefully get to a point where it looks a lot like the original baseboard. So that's the process. So I'm going to work my way back, cut where I have to cut, and then work my way up. And I should have this whole thing completed, hopefully by the end of that day. And I say this because I laugh about it, because it always takes longer than you think. But I think it's going to look pretty amazing. I think it's going to look old, and I think people are going to think that, you know, it was always there. Well, jobs always take a lot longer than you think. And in this case, it's now the next morning, and it is done, at least 98% completed. And I just want to point out some things. I saved the old molding that was around here, and it was painted white and green and another color. So I sanded all that down, refinished them, put them back in place, and they look like they've been here for day one, for a long, long time. So we're achieving that old look that we really wanted to accomplish. As far as the tiling is concerned, it just took a long time, especially when you get down into these pieces around here. Now, the other thing I haven't completed yet, but I did install, was the old baseboard molding. And if you remember me talking about having a cradle, well, it worked out really well. So it enabled me to level things and give it that look that we've been looking for. I will go around the bottom with a new piece of molding and stain it to try to get as close as I can to matching the old color here. And the next thing that I'm going to tackle is going to be the mantle, but that's for another episode. But right now, we're very happy with what we have, and I hope you like it. Behind me, as you can see, is Lake Ontario. The waves are kicking up. We have whitecaps, and let me tell you something, it's a breezy day, and I wouldn't want to be in the water, but believe it or not, some folks around here actually do venture in at this time of year. It's fall here in upstate New York, and the breeze is brisk, so there's nothing like enjoying the ambience and warmth of our amazing fireplace. Coming up in episode 3, we'll be painting the walls in our great room. We'll be raising the windows in our shed. We'll be going to the public market for some shopping. Our diseased maple tree will be removed along with grinding out a bunch of stumps. Plus, we'll be making a number of other fun improvements to our 1905 cottage. So stay with us and don't forget to subscribe and share. And thank you so much.